Hello, this is Don Stevens. Tonight we're going to cover chapter 15 of the book of Judges. Again, this is a short chapter, but bear with us. Chapter 16 is coming up and it's a little bit longer, so here we go. And it came to pass that a while after, during the time of the wheat harvest, that Samson visited his wife with a little goat. So now Samson cooled off and decided to go back and see his bride. Started to go into her bedroom, but her father stopped him and told him what he had done. And so he started to go into her chamber, but her father would not allow him to go in. Her father said, "Hey, when you left here, you were so mad I figured we would never see you again, so I let her marry the best man. But look at her little sister over there. I mean, she's a lot prettier than the other daughter was anyway. So why don't you take this little sister as your wife?" And Samson said, "I'm going to be more blameless than the Philistines, though I do them a displeasure." Now, in other words, Samson was declaring to them that he was going to get even. And Samson went out and caught 300 foxes. Now, these were actually jackals. And he took firebrands, turned them tail to tail, tied their tails together, and he put the firebrand in the midst of them between the two tails. And so he then turned them loose in the fields of standing wheat. So Samson burned both the standing wheat, the shocks, the wheat that had already been gathered and bundled, along with the standing corn, the vineyards, and the olives. And the Philistines said, "Who did this?" And they answered, "It was Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he had taken his wife and given her to his best man." And so the Philistines came up and burnt her and her father with fire. And Samson said to them, "Though you have done this, yet I'm going to get even with you, and after that I'll stop." And so he went out and smote them hip and thigh with a great slaughter. Now again, we see that there is nothing to Samson to doing this. I mean, he just went out and wiped out a bunch of these guys all by himself. Not a problem at all for him. And then he went down and dwelled in the top of the rock Etam. And the Philistines went up and pitched in Judah and spread themselves in Lehi. And the men of Judah said, "Hey, why are you guys come up against us?" And they said, "To bind Samson and to get even with him, do to him and he's done to us." And so 3,000 men of Judah came to the top of the rock, Etam, and they said to Samson, "Don't you know that these Philistines are rulers over us? What have you done to us?" And he said unto them, "Look, I only did to them what they did to me." And they said unto him, "Look, we're come to bind you, that we may deliver you to the hand of the Philistines." And Samson said unto them, "Swear to me that you'll not fall upon me yourselves." And they said, "No, we won't fall upon you, but we want to bind you fast and deliver you into their hand. But we will not kill you." And so they bound him with 2 ropes, and they brought him up from the rock. Now, this slide you're looking at now basically shows the location of Edom compared to the other places that we're talking about in this little endeavor of Samson's from one point to the other. The next slide here shows the cave at which Samson stayed at the rock of Edom. And this last map shows the locations described in this chapter over which Samson traveled from the wedding through his victory with the jawbone in Lehi. And when he came to Lehi, where the Philistines were encamped, they shouted against him. They cried out and they began to run for him, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him. The cords that bound his arms became like flax that were burned in the fire. His bands were loosed from off his hands, and he found a new jawbone of a donkey. And he put forth his hand and took it, and he slew 1,000 men with it. And Samson said, "With the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps." Now this is a reference to the piles of bodies all around him after he did this. "Heaps upon heaps, with the jaw of a donkey, I've killed 1,000 men." And it came to pass, when he had made an end to speaking, that he tossed the jawbone aside, and he called the place Ramath Lehi. Now, Ramoth Lehi is literally translated as the hill of the jawbone, or Jawbone Heights, if you will. And he was very thirsty, and he called on the Lord, and he said, "You have given me a great deliverance unto your servant, and now I am going to die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised." But God clave a hollow place that was in the jaw, and there came water out of it, and when he had drunk, his spirit came again, and he revived. And so he called the name of the place En Hakkore, which is in Lehi unto this day. Now, En Hakkore is translated as the well of him that cried, or the spring of the caller. He called upon the Lord, and God provided the water. And he judged Israel in the days of the Philistines for 20 years. Now, that's the end of chapter 5, and I think there's a lot of good information there about what happened during this period of time. A lot of these stories you've probably heard all the way from Sunday schools all the way onto the pulpit over a period of time that you've been in church. But there's a lot of information here that's, I think, vital to the story that we're going to hear in chapter 16, which I'll be heading to soon. So until then, this is Don Stephens. These are just my thoughts on chapter 15 of the book of Judges. Until next time, God bless you.